Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Interviewing Wednesdays. It's February 10th, 2021. We're very, very glad you are with us today. For those people on Zoom, if you have any questions, please, as soon as you think about them, just put them right in the chat box, enter them in the chat box. For those people on Facebook, if you have any questions, please just use the comment field. I am monitoring the feed, and I'll make sure we get those questions answered for you. For those people on Zoom, for those people on Zoom, if you're using a PC or Mac, we ask that you use the speaker view, which is in the which would look like in the lower left-hand corner, where you see that red arrow. You can grab that white line and you can drag it to the right or left to make the speaker bigger or smaller, whatever aspect ratio you'd like to have between the two people. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and on the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you happen to post a comment in the chat box or have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your comment, name, and picture to appear. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. I founded Career DFW back in 2008 to help those in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in their job search. In 2012, I started CareerUSA.org to help people outside the DFW area. I've written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It's available on Amazon. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. I'll tell you about our upcoming program at the end of the session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team, conducting interviews for job candidates around the DFW area. Well, we've got two speakers who are with us, Mark McDonald and Walt Glass. Mark leads the practice interview team, which when we were meeting in person, met on Wednesdays at 1 o'clock, and Walt Glass runs the interview success workshop he was doing on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but now we're all meeting virtually online. So gentlemen, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Jeff. So, hey, Mark McDonald here. I run the Dallas Pit Crew, and I'm mostly retired now. I do a little bit of coaching as well, and then coaching on how to answer the question, why did you leave your last job? But mostly it's about organizing the Pit Crew, and let me tell you a little bit about the Pit Crew. It's what it says. We provide practice interviews. We give you a chance to practice working the camera, making good openings and closings like we're going to talk about today, answering difficult questions, and making a good impression, building rapport, all those kinds of things you can work on during a practice interview, and all of those are important to you doing well in your interviews. And so the interviews are given by hiring managers. So I have a bunch of volunteers on my team. The practice interview team is a group of about 35 hiring managers who volunteer their time to give the practice interviews. Almost all of them are in job transition, just like you. A few are retired like me, and continue to give back in their retirement years. And you send in a job description and a resume, and that's what we use to prepare for your very individualized and personalized interview experience. So it's based on the job you're looking for and your resume, your background. It's very specific. And a lot of candidates are surprised at how well the interviewers are prepared to give them an interview. So when you volunteer to be a Pit Crew candidate, don't be surprised how well prepared they will be. You should be well prepared as well. It takes 2 or 3 days to set up a practice interview. So when you send in your information via email to the Pit Crew Gmail account there, and I'll post it up on the chat as soon as I'm done. It takes 2 or 3 days. So I'll also need to know your availability +2 and +3 days. That would be business days. So if you send in your information on Friday, I'd be looking for a Tuesday or Wednesday, maybe a Thursday practice interview, depending on how busy we are. But usually it's no more than a few days delay between your request and when the interview is scheduled. We do them during the daytime. We use the Zoom technology. You get a video of yourself and the interviewers asking questions and the answers that you provided. And on top of all that, it's absolutely free. So there you go. That's the Pit Crew. I encourage you to link in with me and let you join my network. All you have to do is send me a brief message that says we met on Interviewing Wednesday, and I'll add you to my network. You can search my name there, include the middle initial. That'll help you find me very quickly, or you can search on Pit Crew and I should pop right up on LinkedIn. Okay, what did I forget? I already mentioned coaching.
You covered it. You talked about coaching at the beginning. So
here we go.
yeah,
Thanks.
You're good. All right, Walt.
Mark, that's great. It only took you about 10 months to get all that in and get it on. Yeah, I'm right in there with you, trying to remember everything. I have reached the age where I'm now allowed to not remember anything at all. So I am forgiven for doing two things. That's one. The other one is telling the same story over and over and over again. So I enjoy doing that and getting freedom to do that. Well, I'm Walt Glass, and I offer the Interview Success Workshop. And so I enjoy helping you build skills and confidence for those successful hiring interviews. Now, it's different than the Pit Crew because it's very informal. It's more of a learning interview rather than a mock interview. It's not a mock interview. We're going to cover some basics and fundamentals on the two areas of differentiation from other candidates and how to sell ourselves as defined by who you are, what you do, and how you can help. You'd be surprised how many people talk about I do. My experience is this. I do this, I do this, I do this. They don't talk about the soft skills, which are really the criteria for getting hired. If it doesn't match the culture, if it's not a fit, they don't like you, the other two don't matter. So how do we sell who we are, what we do, and how we can help them? Have to be registered to attend. Look at my LinkedIn About section for details about the workshop. Only have two people at a time. You interview each other. I take notes and then we review responses. Then we have feedback and coaching on those things that I'm telling you about on differentiation and selling ourselves. So look there. There's an email address on the yahoo.com. Send me a note and say, I'm interested in registering. I'll give you some dates and we'll get you on the schedule. Here you can pause. You can start over. We can laugh. We can have a good time. It's not necessary to be in a lot of anguish or anxiety and stress while you're learning how to interview better. So come on down so we can do learning without squirming.
Great, Walt. Thank you very much. All right. Well, today we're going to do session number 6, interview openings and closings and interview follow-up. So gentlemen, please take it away.
All right. Give me a moment here to get that set up. You guys can see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
And then let me see the chat window. So I've got the chat window open and I can see a few of you. We're almost ready. Interview openings and closings and interview follow-up. So we are entering the second phase of the webinar series. The first phase, or the first 5 up there, we're preparing to interview. There were 5 sessions. Last week was analyzing the job description. We are now at session number 6, which is the first of 5 sessions about effective interviewing. And so we're starting at the beginning, but the beginnings are very tightly coupled to the endings as well. And then this is a good place to also talk about the follow-up that occurs after the interview, because the interview is not over when it's over. It continues to go on until they make a selection, right? So we'll talk about those 3 topics today. And let me jump right in and talk about my part. I've got about 5 slides here. So I'm going to hit this at a pretty high level like we usually do. And then Walt's going to come in and provide a lot more details and options about how to achieve a good opening, a good closing, and post-interview activities. I'd like to say that when we used to do this face-to-face, it was a very interactive session, and it's a little harder to do that on Zoom. But if you have a question, I got the chat window open. Go ahead and ask your question on chat, and if we can address it really quickly, we'll do it right then and there. And if not, we have some built-in pauses here where we can answer your questions. So we want to make sure we get a chance to answer your questions. And so we kind of, still have that interactive session the way we used to do it, because that's more effective when you learn from each other. And, this format is more of a tutorial or a lecture type format, but we can still learn from each other. So ask your questions when they occur to you. I'm sure you will not be the only one who has that question. Also, I'd like to identify people who are brand new to this webinar, either the pit crew or the interviewing webinar that Jeff holds on Wednesdays. So if you're a first timer to job search, please just put your name on the chat and put first time, and we'd like to identify you. And then other people who've been in the group for a while, maybe have more experience in the job search than you have, can recognize you and reach out to you if they have something to share. So please do that in the chat window. So here's my first slide, and when we give interview feedback out of the pit crew, it usually falls in these 5 categories, okay? Preparation, how to prepare better, or how to be prepared for certain types of questions. Getting a good start, which we're going to talk about today. Taking the lead and avoid a crash. Almost all the remaining sessions are about, setting yourself apart or avoiding making a big mistake. So there's 6 or 7 more sessions to come just on that topic. Finishing strong, and Walt will talk about this a little bit more than I do, but we see a lot of weak finishes. And so we want to finish strong, start strong, finish strong. And then the post-interview activities. We don't talk about that too much in the pit crew, but if it comes up, it's something we think is essential based on the job posting and the situation you're in, what phase you're in the interview process. We may give the candidates some feedback on what they need to do post-interview to make sure they cross the finish line. So those are today's topics. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you again what I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you, okay? And then I may tell you what I told you. So we'll have some repeat here, but there's 3 parts to getting a good start and 3 parts to finishing strong. Now, there may be more parts than this if you break it down, but let's focus on remembering 3. And so for a good start, you need a greeting. And I call that your statement of enthusiasm, but in general, it's some greeting, the very first things that come out of your mouth when you see the interviewers face-to-face or on a video session. The invitation to make an opening statement. So about 3/4 of the time, you'll get an opportunity to make an opening statement, and the other 25% of the time, you still need to make an opening statement, even if you're not given an opportunity. So we'll talk about what that opening statement is, assuming it occurred right at the beginning as part of your getting a good start. And then the third part of getting a good start is your first question. So we want to work hard and think about in advance and be prepared in your interview to begin a dialogue. Now, I used to call this a conversation, but now I'm calling it a dialogue. Okay, your first question is designed to generate a dialogue for you to gain information. I call it a dialogue because making it a conversation gave some people the impression that, hey, we're just having a conversation here, we're taking our time, back and forth. That's not it at all. An interview is a time-limited experience. You don't want to spend too much time on things that aren't going to be productive. So this is a purposeful question to have a dialogue and not necessarily begin a quote-unquote conversation. Okay, the difference between a conversation and a dialogue is time limited. You realize it's time limited. You're asking questions for a purpose. Okay, so that's the 3 getting a good start, and we'll go over those in a little more detail. And then finishing strong, got 3 things you want to achieve at the end of the interview. And you're going to need to leave a few minutes for this. You want to ask questions about the role and the hiring process, ask for feedback, definitely want to ask for feedback, and then ask for to move on to the next stop or ask for the job. And we'll talk about that a little more. Do we have some questions come up? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think you handled it, Jeff, right?
Yes, got it.
All right. Okay, so getting a good start. Your statement of enthusiasm as a greeting. You can always say, hello, I'm Mark McDonald. How you doing today? Isn't the weather great? Man, it's really cold outside. Okay, but let's have a purposeful greeting. And this purpose of this greeting is to start your enthusiasm story, your motivation story, why you're interested in this job. So you're going to say 2 things that you believe you can help them with. They may be soft skills, they may be abilities and skills that you have, but you're going to look at the job description and you're going to pick out 2 things that really speak to you, things you really like to do, love to do, are good at, and they will need. Okay, so just a very brief statement. I'm glad we're having this conversation today so I can share with you my love of Excel spreadsheets and forecasting sales and revenue. Okay, something like that. Here's one of my example. I really enjoy helping companies recover cash using inventory control and flexible logistics. So there's a couple of specific things. They're not going to have any impact if they're general things. So this needs to be very specific, and it's really why this role. You're going to answer that right up front, even before they ask you a question. You're going to tell them why you're interested in this role. Okay, so that's your statement of enthusiasm. 20, 30 seconds, maybe less. Okay, now, like I said, about 3/4 of the time, based on research done by Mina Brown, you're going to get this question, tell me about yourself. And if you go on Google and you search for like questions asked in project management interviews, questions asked in accounting interviews, questions asked in sales specialist interviews, the first question is going to be, tell me about yourself. Believe me, because I did it. So this question comes out a lot. Okay, now what you got to repurpose this question. You got to reimagine this question. The question is, how can you help me, and why are you interested in my company? It's a two-part question. Okay, so tell me about yourself. This is what they want to hear. How you can help me, and why are you interested in my company at this time? Because after all, it's all about their needs. You know, the interview's about you and how you can help them and why you would like to go to work there. So I have a little formula for this. There's other ways to do this. Walt will give you his perspective on it, but I try to do everything in threes. So here's my 3-part formula. 15 seconds. This is going to take 2 minutes. 2 minutes to answer this tell me about yourself question. And a lot of times people go a lot longer than this. So you got to work on it. It takes a lot of work to say something short. 15 seconds on your professional training, any military service you had, any language you speak, and perhaps just a little personal tidbit, like how long you've lived in the Dallas area, or maybe like to play tennis on the weekends, something very brief, but something a little personal. Okay, so that personalizes it a bit. But that's where you start with your professional training. Unless you know you have a connection, like you went to the same college, or you grew up in the same town as the person you're going to be interviewing with, there's no need to start any earlier than that. Wherever your professional training started, start right there. Then you want to take, that's just 15 seconds. Then you want to take about 45 seconds, 15 seconds each, to mention 3 success stories, 3 achievements. And you're not going to say how you did them. You're not going to say what you did. You're just going to say what the success was. Okay, so associated with what they need on their job description, things they've asked for. Pick out 3 that you believe are the most important. And we had a whole session on analyzing the job description last week, so go back and take a look at that if you want to get some more insight into this. But you're going to tell them right up front 3 ways you were successful in things that they're going to be interested in, and ways you believe they need help based on your analysis of the job description and the research you've done outside of the job description. So you're purposeful right here. Here's 3 things I've done in the past I think you're going to be very interested in. Don't tell them how or what. That's going to come up later, right? So this is just an introduction. And then you want to spend the remaining minute or so continuing your motivation story. And here's where you can now start talking about what you admire about the company, what you heard from other people that you may have talked to about the company, how this fits into your career arc. So you may have had a few jobs that prepared you for this moment. So a time where you can take this job at a higher level or contribute to help this company. And so you can mention all those parts. Any personal connection you may have to the mission of the company or what the company does is good to mention here. It all builds on your story of why you're interested in this job, this company, and right now. So that's your 2-minute introduction. And now you're 2.5 minutes into the interview, and you're going to start asking your first questions. And there's more than one questions to be asked. So let me go on to the next slide here. Laura just said she's been asked that motivation question. Yeah, my suggestion is you don't even make them ask it. Just tell them right up front in your opening statement why you're motivated. Okay, your first questions are all about how you can help them. So how can I help you? You might even ask that question, but you want to ask questions to discover what they need help with and be persistent in that. Now, you've done a lot of research, hopefully. I had plenty of time to do research ahead of time. You prepared your star stories, you analyzed the job description. Last week, we talked a lot about how the job description may not be totally reliable, a totally reliable capture of what they need now. So you should certainly ask right up front. And when we get to the session on difficult questions, you will understand more how important it is right at the beginning. And we're 2.5 minutes into the interview now to square up, so to speak, square up what you heard from your research by asking the interviewers what is most important to them for this role. You may get confirmation that the research you did and the information you had previously is good. You may not get confirmation. You may hear other things that are important to this particular interviewer that were not on the job description, or things that you thought were kind of lower priority, but they aren't, they're higher priority. So what are the characteristics of top performers in this role? That's a good question to ask. What are the characteristics of top performers in this role? Of course, you want to be a top performer. From your perspective, what are the most important objectives or requirements for this position? Now, I've turned this from a generic question into a very personal question. Okay, now you're asking from your perspective. If you're not interviewing with the hiring manager and you start asking these questions about what's important for the role, some interviewers will just defer. They're going to say, well, you have to ask the hiring manager. And you want to say, no, yes, I will do that, but I'm interested in your perspective. I'm interested in, from your perspective, what are the most important objectives or requirements for this position? In your opinion, what is the most important contribution that the company expects from this role? Or it could be that the department, or if you're talking to the hiring manager, that you expect from this role. What specific skills from the person you hire would make your life easier? So that's a good question as well. Now you're going to ask 2 or 3 of these. And when I say be persistent, if you ask for what are the characteristics of top performers in this role, and they just say, they give a couple, then you're going to say, well, what else? What else is important to you? What about the soft skills? Okay, so you want to ask a series of questions, even though it may take up 2 or 3 or 4 minutes. You want to be sure that before you go any further into the interview, you understand what's important to them, what they're buying, what they need, where they need help. And hopefully you'll find that your previous preparation was on target, but you may not. Okay, and then you can shift and you can talk about those things that are important to them. Certainly they're going to be asking about those things. So you can start to anticipate after they tell you, you can start to anticipate, well, I'm going to get some questions about that because that's important to them. What in my background would be the most impactful for this position? So now you're checking how much they know about you, as well as gaining information about which parts of your background they thought would be most impactful for them. I think this is a dicey question to ask about their problems or what keeps them up at night. I think in general, you don't want to go in that negative direction. And since you're not an employee and you're not their top candidate because they haven't made you an offer, it's just kind of out of bounds. Who knows who you're going to be interviewing with next, and where if they share their challenges with you, who you're going to talk to. So I think they would shy away from this and perhaps even be kind of offended if you ask that kind of question at the front of an interview. Okay, let me change. That's your opening. Most important 5 minutes, I'd say, maybe even 4 minutes in the interview is getting a good start. I think Walt's going to talk about the most important 7 seconds in the interview, so he's got me beat there. But the first 5 minutes or so, very important part of the interview, and you want to start strong. Finishing strong. At this point, you've got some questions you want to ask, and a lot of times you don't have control over how much time is left in the interview when the interviewer says, okay, well, what kind of questions do you have for me? Now, you want to be asking questions all through the interview to have that dialogue that I talked about, and you start off asking a series of questions to understand what they need help with, but as it occurs to you, and maybe as you prepared for in advance, you can be asking questions along the way. You always have to be aware of the remaining time. So if it's a 30-minute interview, there's not a lot of time likely for you to have your questions answered. So be aware of that. But if you have a 45-minute or an hour interview, then there's probably going to be time for you to ask several questions about different topics that may come up during the interview, and certainly the ones you prepare for at the beginning and the ones you prepare for at the ending. So these are kind of prepared questions, prioritized. Some of them may be answered as you went along. But, you know, if I were a spectacular success in this role after 6 months, what would I have accomplished? Okay, so that's a more specific question than earlier. What are their priorities? It's what would I have accomplished if I was in this role? You have now subtly placed yourself as working for the company and asking the interviewer to answer that question. Well, if I was working here and it was 6 months from now, what would I have accomplished? You also want to ask about the hiring process and what the next steps are and who you should contact if you have any follow-up questions and when you should do that. And I would suggest you actually suggest a time, you do a trial close, you know, say if I have any questions, I'm sure I'm going to have some questions. If I had some questions, who would I contact? And would it be okay if I called next Tuesday at 10 a.m.? Just see what they say. Asking for feedback. I strongly believe that, you know, the only time you're going to get feedback, negative feedback, let's say you're not the top candidate, but the only time you're going to understand why that might not be the case is during the interview. Okay, because after the interview, there's no benefit to anyone in the hiring chain to tell you your shortcomings. Okay, it's just not going to happen. And probably some of you have experienced this. You know, they just won't give you feedback. Recruiter won't give you feedback. The internal or external recruiter, there's no upside for them telling you where you fell short. But if you ask during the interview, you have an opportunity, and you may not prevail, but you have an opportunity to get a sense of what they may have been misunderstood about. They may give you a chance to answer a question again, or they may, you know, show you some body language or use some language to indicate to you that you're probably not the top candidate. Okay, so it's important for you to know. You don't want to be wasting your time if you're not going to be in the top 2 or 3. But it also has, you know, we've heard stories where it's turned the interview around, where there was a misconception or a misunderstanding and the interviewer mentioned it and the candidate got a chance to clarify that before, you know, the decision was made whether to advance them or not. And then finally, you want to ask for the job. So this kind of wraps up your enthusiasm and your motivation. You want to ask to be advanced to the next step. If you don't know exactly what the next step is, or if the next step's another round, then you want to clarify that you are very excited about this opportunity. You have value to add based on your introduction, those 3 stories the successes that you mentioned and other successes that were discussed during the interview. You can summarize those and then, you know, ask to be advanced to the next step or express your sincere interest to start as soon as possible. If you're unemployed, you could start on Monday. All right, post-interview activities. I'm going to let Walt cover that. He's got some other stuff to share with you before he gets there. And he did a great job on post-interview activities, so I'm not going to supplement it. And Walt, you're up. Is there any questions while we're switching screens here? Any questions that I missed?
Hey, Mark, this is Tony. Quick
Hey,
question. Suppose they don't ask us, tell me about yourself. Do you think it's a good strategy, maybe when it's time for us to ask questions, saying, hey, you know, can I take a minute to tell you about myself and why I think I'd be a great fit or how I can help you, or, not do that? What's your advice
No,
on that?
I think that's perfect. And yeah, tell them it's going to be brief, tell them how long it's going to take, and then launch into it. The other option is if you don't think you're going to have time for all of that, you want to do those 3 successes. Okay, so they may ask a question, and so your first minute or so, you summarize 3 successes, and then you go right into answering their question. So you don't really even ask permission to take this slight little diversion, but since it's going to be so short and so interesting, go ahead and go for it. So,
Thank you, Mark.
yep. Any other questions? Okay, well, it's up to you.
I want to tell you, just because Mark went first doesn't mean he copied all my material. So it's amazing how much alike. Now, we actually put these pieces together individually and then put them in a presentation format, kind of a tutorial type format. So there's a lot of things that we have come up. And so I've got a lot of similar things to say that Mark has said. I'm going to present a little bit differently and give you a couple other thoughts along with that.
Walt,
Well,
can
let's
you
go-
expand? Can you expand your screen? Because it's really like half our screen in the middle. There we go. Thank you.
I'm not supposed to do that. Anyway, that's a setting in PowerPoint. But nonetheless, I'm going to enjoy the next few minutes looking to a little round spot in the top of my laptop, which is not as exciting as looking at you and being with you in person. But nonetheless, I want to ask you this question. What are we selling? I'm going to tell you what the most often answer is that I get. 99 out of 100 is ourselves. All right, we're selling ourselves. Then I ask, define ourselves, and there's a long pause. So what does that mean? Just exactly what is that? Well, the better question is not necessarily what we're selling, it's what are they buying? Because I'd like to know what they're buying. So the interview is a sales presentation. We're presenting ourselves. It's a selling situation. We're going to give them reasons to buy us, just like any salesperson would. All right. So that's what salespeople do. They find out what's going on, find out what the need is, and then start delivering to that need. We want to use the very, very same approach. So that means a selling mindset. All right. It doesn't mean a please God help me answer these questions and get out of here. It's a selling mindset, right, that we want to have. So that's one of the differences. So, boy, this thing is very, very sensitive. All right. I have broken ourselves down into 3 things. I am, I do, and I help. Who I am, my characteristics, my soft skills, how I would define myself, how others would define me and tell me. So, well, tell me about Mark. And so Mark is very friendly, very approachable. He has a lot of knowledge about, and I could describe Mark. In fact, I could probably describe Mark easier than I can describe myself. That's because I didn't spend much time finding out about myself and who I really am, what I really enjoy doing, what my strengths are, what's the type of environment where I thrive. That's one of the things we got to do when we're looking for a job, because if you can't describe that, then you don't know what your target is. So that's who you are. Then the I do is your experience, your background, your education, your certifications, or whatever it might be, all the experience things. Then the I help is what can I help you do? People do not hire us to do our job. They hire us to do the job to bring in the results they're looking for. So the primary thing is not just your experience, because experience is going to show that you can do the job. All right. A lot of people can do the job, but don't get hired. Okay. They can do it. And it comes back to the I am and the I help side. In fact, if you don't meet the cultural and the personality fit, the other 2 don't matter. They're not going to hire anybody that they don't like. And that's why I am is the most important. Therefore, in your networking, in your research, and when you're looking at companies, find out what the culture is like. No need to go interview for a company where the culture is not your fit. Saves you a lot of time to figure that out in advance. So maybe you've heard of Moravian and his communication theory and his communications of feelings and attitudes. Now, many people think this is a communications theory. It's only in the feelings and attitudes part of the communications. All right. So it's a misunderstanding of what that is. And guess what? We want to communicate. We don't want to just communicate words and ideas. We want to communicate feelings and attitudes. What's our feeling towards this job? What's our attitude towards this job, this position, this company, that sort of thing. So 7% comes from the words that are spoken, 38 how they're said, and 55 in the facial expression. It basically is everything else but how the words are said and what the words are. I thought you drove to Dallas. 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 And I thought you drove to Dallas. Okay. Same words, intonation different, and how I might say them gives you that feeling and attitude of what I have towards that particular area that I'm talking about. So we pay a lot of attention to what we say, but we don't pay a lot of attention to how we say it. And we don't pay a lot of attention to what we're thinking. So let me talk about that for a moment. When you're looking at communication, so we have facial expression and body language, all right? That's the context. That's everything but the words we say and the intonation. But here's the key. I want to know, what are we thinking? So when you walk into the interview, what are you thinking? So let's go look at a couple ends of the spectrum. I've already talked about, please God, help me answer these questions, all right? Anxiety, nervous, fear, seeing our life flash in front of our eyes, hoping we can answer the questions. Particularly if I'm going to have a series of interviews. I mean, I've heard of these terrible situations where you got like 6 in a row, and you go all day long. And so thanks for your thinking about us and how it might make us feel to do 6 in a row. That doesn't matter. They're in their perspective. They're in their frame of reference, and we need to get in their frame of reference. So if you're thinking, I'm excited about this position, this is the kind of job I want, it's really my dream job. And if that's true, it's easy to get excited and energetic about it. I'm interested in the job, all right? So I don't dance on the table, but at least I can show my interest, right? I'm also interested in this company. I like this company. I can't wait to talk about the company. I can't wait to talk about the job. Can't wait to learn about my interviewer, all right? So if I have that mindset, then my body language and my tone, all that stuff is going to flow, and it's going to be authentic, and it's going to be genuine. I would never want you to fake it till you make it. I hate that expression. I disagree with it totally. There's no faking it these days to me. Be genuine. And if they don't want you for who you are, you don't want to work there, right? So it's not bad. A successful interview can be where you find out that's not where you want to work. And that's a good interview. So how you think, and how you think is going to determine your attitude. And if you've got a good attitude about things, it's going to show up. And if you don't have any attitude, you've got worry, not anxiety, that's going to show up too. So we got to get ourselves prepared for our mindset when we walk into the interview. That's a lot of work on preparation for the interview. In fact, we have 5 sessions on just the preparation alone, researching companies, doing a whole bunch of things. It's a lot of work. So the words we choose, tone we use, and how we look sends the message. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is the greeting? Now, Mark mentioned the greeting. And so we've got a little, I think you have to scroll down to get all the questions because all the choices. No, that's right. It's just 1 to 10. So I'm getting a lot of 10s, 70, 57, 58. We've only got about half the people voting yet. Jump in there and vote. What do you really think? I'm taking a second to copy this page so I can keep the results. Okie dokie. Well, let me get back to the. Okay, so what we find out is very important. 8 above, 8, 9, 10. So a little over half say it's the top of the line importance. It's extremely important. Then we got 9s and 8s. So we all agree that the greeting is very, very important. Okay, Jeff, you can turn that off, please, sir. Let me see if I can't recover my video.
Yeah, you just need to X out, everybody individually needs to just X out of the box to close that poll.
Close this file. I have to do this a different way. My computer's busy doing other things.
Walt, we can't hear you.
Okay,
Oh,
now
there you
back
are.
in.
You're back.
So how you're looking at can make it much, matter as much as your ideas do, all right? And you don't get a second chance to make that first impression. And we decide very quickly whether a person possesses a lot of the traits that we as hiring managers or hiring on the interview side feel that are important. So here's another poll. Now, Mark kind of gave away the answer, but he was wrong. Well, maybe he was wrong.
I did look ahead.
I don't know, Mark, can you do like a print screen or something to capture the results of this?
Yes. Let me,
Something like that. If you'll do it while I'm supposedly busy doing the right things instead of all this administrative stuff. All right. So we got 71% has voted, 3% less than 1 to 5 is 39. The most popular is 6 to 10, includes that 7 that Mark said, 49%. Then a few on 5% on 11 to 15 or greater than 15 seconds. Okay. So Princeton University did some research and they say, people make judgments about these soft skills, trustworthiness, in addition, competence, likability, within a fraction of a second after seeing someone's face, okay? The traits examined, trustworthiness was done in less than 1/10 of a second. And it takes another whole 3 seconds to figure out all the rest that we know about you. So in 3 seconds, I've made judgments. We are judging individuals. We were built that way. It's just like computer. We're zeros and ones. It's a binary type process. Very few things are neutral. If you look at something, you either kind of like it or you don't like it, okay? You look at a picture, you like it or you don't like it. So we make these decisions. The problem with that is we can be so wrong, right? We can be wrong. So we can help that initial impression by that greeting that we say to help give them the right ideas about who we are and about us. So that's the importance of it. So who are you talking to? Know your audience, know your interviewer, all right? Do your research to try to find out information about that interviewer, particularly if there's something in common. Boy, if you want to build rapport, make a connection, something in common is an excellent way to get started because, if you went to the same school, oh, that would be beautiful. You hope that they graduated too. No, that's not true. But if you've got something in common and you can bring that up in that opening, in that statement, you say, well, I see that you went to, so this is the chit chat a little bit before you get started, before you sit down, before you get in that sort of thing, or while you're walking down the hall or whatever it might be. If you can bring something up like that, have something in common, you both worked at the same company, whatever it might have been, that's the same, similar type role or something. How effective do you think smiling is? Smiling presents a positive physical reaction in our bodies. Okay, science has said science makes us feel better. So if you kind of look at the converse of that, I was a math major before I got my MBA, so I look at these kinds of things. So have you ever been irritable and smiled at the same time? It doesn't work, right? So you don't. So smiling, but smiling is not a technique. It's kind of like when people say, we're going to take your picture, smile, Walt, and I go, I don't think that's a very good smile. It's too manufactured, right? But if you are enjoying this interview and looking forward to it and excited about it, you will automatically smile. And that produces a good feeling in the body, in the physical body, on the other person. 99% of the time, you're going to get a smile back. Okay. Now, it depends on what they're going through in their situation and what's in their mind. All right. If they just got to work and they had a fender bender, they may not be in a good mood. Right. But nonetheless, smiling is good, but it comes from within. It's not something that you just do. It's something that shows up naturally. Eye contact. So now, eye contact here is meaning I'm not looking at anybody's eyes. I'm looking at a little round hole. I'm looking at a camera. But that's how I make eye contact virtually. If I start looking off to the side and I say, oh, I'm watching Jeff as I'm talking, then that's very distracting, and you're not got to be talking to you. If you're meeting in person, a firm and quick handshake. Don't hold by his hands together too long. I try to say kind of mirror their handshake. You get a little bit of time to mirror that. I know that those who like to play bone crusher, you have to do it in return to keep your hand, and your bones from breaking in your fingers. But a lot of people with bone crushers, that's telling them something about themselves. Those people that do that, you're getting a message from that person about who they are, how they operate. So speak genuinely, always be authentic. Don't ever lie. Don't ever fake it. Just be genuine, be yourself. All right. That's what you want to sell. If you're meeting in person, get their business card. I don't care what they do with yours. See, the purpose of a business card is to get theirs. Right? So anytime you're out networking and whatever it might be, and you're handing out cards or something at a job fair.
Looks like Walt froze for a second. Let's see here if he unfreezes. There you go. You're unfrozen now.
Okay, I've shut off all my other devices. Although Spectrum told me today that they might lower my speed. Yeah, I'm getting an internet connection is unstable message. Yeah, well, let me know if that happens again. So practice. That builds your confidence. When you come to my workshop, I do not expect confidence. I do not expect perfection. I do not expect you to be able to handle an interview very well. I expect you to come in with, can you help me figure out how to do a better job? How can you help me improve my interviewing skills? That's the mindset that I want, that I'm looking for when you come through the workshop. I'm just trying to do better. We're not going to beat you up, because there's a lot of good things that people do in interviews. It's not all that bad, but a lot of them too aren't different. I'm telling you, I hear the answers to the same thing over and over and over again. And I'm sure that Mark can tell you. And when we get to the list of questions, they're the same. I'll bet you there's 3 questions that show up 99% of the time, same questions. It's not that they're bad, and they're not the means that we don't ask them, but it means we gotta think about what questions we ask. And so those are some of the things I'll talk about in the workshop. So let me do an opening statement, a little bit different outline, but it covers almost everything that Mark said as well. All right. So here's an example, and I go with brevity. Every answer is 90 seconds or less. Start with brevity, let them ask for more details. So we've talked about the greeting. I'm going to mention something about the greeting. So here's the greeting. Hi, good morning. Thanks a lot for taking the time to talk with me today. And I'm done. All right. I hear that over and over and over again. It's true. It's authentic. It's genuine. Certainly isn't different. All right. So we'll do something a little different. I'm really excited to be here today. I look forward to having a conversation. Maybe we should make it a convolog or a diassociation or something like that. Mark, get that dialogue in there. I like your definition of dialogue, because I want to have a dialogue with you. I want to set that tone, let you know that I don't want an interrogation. I'm trying to make it a dialogue interview. And I think I can make a significant contribution to the team. So I can help you. Something a little bit like that. It's got an I am, I do, and I help inside of that opening, inside of the greeting. Now, what's the opening? The opening that I suggest answers these questions, all right? And so the question is, you'll probably never get this question, how did you get into your career? But I think the answer to it is going to really help you do a good job of telling them about you. At some point in your life, you decided to do the job you're doing now. You decided to be a data analyst. You decided to be in sales. You decided to be project management. Whatever it is, you made that decision. Go back to that point in time and just give me a couple of sentences. And the way you talk about that is going to tell them how much you enjoy that job. Okay. I remember I was talking with one guy in the workshop, and he says, I've been in construction ever since I built a doghouse in the 7th grade. Okay. Well, he's in construction. And so that's giving the message that, you know, construction is part of his DNA. This is something that he really enjoys doing. All right. And now you can add to that if you want to. It says, oh, and here's my education certifications, things like that. But it's very, very short, not more than probably 4 sentences. So here's the next question. Tell me about your experience and skills and how they add value. Now, this is the I help side. I have many interviews that just don't sell what you can do for me. I got into this whole interviewing thing back when 1999. I retired after 25 years forcibly, and I decided to look for a job. Got into the first interview, and the guy said, well, Walter, what can you do for me? And it went downhill from there. I didn't have a clue as to what in the world I would say. So let me bring in an I do and an I help, and an I am and an I help. So with my experience now I'm going to name probably what I think the most top 2 things in this job description, in this job that they're looking for me to do. All right. And I'm going to include a couple of those and say, with my development, my web development experience, and my ability to understand and communicate effectively with using web services, I can do what? Okay. I can increase the hits. I can increase the traffic. I can get more leads. I can, whatever it is that the result of what you do, I can help you do that. And with my, I love working with different levels in the organization. I can talk with high levels, executive levels, as well as the professional levels and the skill levels. I'm good at understanding their perspective. And that helps me do what? All right. With that, I can what? Effective communication is going to help me reduce the amount of time, making sure everybody's clear and understanding the communication that's taking place, optimize our resources, make sure everybody's aligned with the goal so that we can achieve everything we're trying to do. So I mentioned something about the value of those soft skills. Very few people talk like that. I'm gonna go ahead and tell them why I left. See Mark if that is not an easy answer. All right, Mark specializes in that. But if you left and you were downsized or resized or right-sized, fired, not fired in the bad sense, but fired in the good sense. So I left my last job. Or if you're working, why are you leaving? All right, why are you leaving your current job? Well, I left my last position because of a merger. We were downsized and I was part of that. But that brings me to why I'm here with you today, because I'm going to go immediately into number 4. And this was included in what Mark said. Why do I want this job? And what can I do in that job for you? Okay. Why do I like this type of work, doing these type of activities, doing these things, and a couple of values. So I need a values list. What can I do for you? So you look at your job and say, what value does my job bring to the company? Does it increase revenue? Does it reduce expense? What does it gain? Does it keep customers? All right. Does it increase cash flow? But I looked at a job, suppose I'm an accounts receivable person. One accounts receivable person says, I'm very good at taking a look at our receivables, prioritizing them, and bringing in cash to increase our cash flow, which is the whole purpose of the job, right? And of course, there's others, but that's one. So if I was an accounts receivable clerk and was talking to an interview and said, I think I'd blow them away because I don't think they would hear anybody else say that. Now, why do you want to work for us? I need to be prepared to answer that question. These things are the answer to why should I hire you? Because of this job, what I can do for you, and why I want to work here for this company. We have to be prepared for that. So that's number 4. Then we're going to do a transition statement. Specifically, I'm looking for whatever the title they have in their job description, or the title of the job and the name of this company. So I'm looking for this. And now that I've told you something about myself, and so Mark has already talked about asking the top 3 characteristics and what can I do to help you. All right. I want to get specifics. I want to know who you're looking for, and I want to know the expectations and what you expect me to achieve for you. Right. And if I can get those specifics, I don't want to ask both questions, that they're not consecutive questions. Pick one, and then in another couple of questions, pick the other. All right, we're in a sales situation, right? So I want to find out, who are you looking for? And I want to find out what you want me to do for you. So I'm going all the way back to that interview where he says, tell me, what can you do for me? Which is really the whole crux of the interview. Anyway, closing and sale. Let's jump on down to closing. I'll put this in big print because I rarely see anyone do a close that is effective. Rarely. We just don't close the sale. The most popular thing that I hear in a close is, thank you for the time to talk with me today. I look forward to hearing from you soon. What a close. I'm going to buy from you. I'm going to make you an offer letter right now because you closed so strongly. And that's great. We've got to close. So how do we close? Now, those are some great stuff that Mark has in his material. All that's fine of what he was saying. If you just go listen to his stuff and do that, I'm happy. All right. I really am. So here's my process, I think, of what we do in closing a sale. Now, it covers all of the things that Mark said too. So let's start out with knowing, first of all, that it's time to close, right? So they may have given you opportunity to ask questions. The first thing I do when they say, do you have any questions for me? My first question is, yes, I do. How much time do we have? Now, you never know how much time is really left in an interview. There are those that are scheduled for 30 minutes. And if they go say, okay, do you have any questions for me? You know, you have no time. I mean, it's over, right? So how are you going to ask questions? And why do we ask questions? Just to get data, or do we want to have a dialogue and discuss the answer to that and have something going back and forth? And if you haven't got any time to do that, then you say your questions time is really over, although we're going to have a few questions in the close itself. But as far as just getting some data and talking, that's not going to be very effective. So ask that question. I have known where somebody said we had a 30-minute interview scheduled and we went an hour. At the end of the interview, she said about questions. He said, okay, I do have a couple. Tell me about this job that's not listed on the job description. And she told me that. We went another 20 minutes talking about that, all right? So you never really know, but you ask that question. The trick is to be on their agenda with you in control. This is the trick, all right? So I asked them. If they're not asking us to tell stories, for example, we say, can I tell you one? Can I give you one? Can I tell you about a time when I accomplished this? That way you can get a story, but it's always on their agenda. You just don't start telling it. Ask them if it's okay. So showing interest. This job is really what I thought it would be. I'm really excited about doing this. I can't wait to get started. You know, today we've talked about you need someone who can help you do these things. Here's achievement 1, 2, 3, and 4 that we've discussed. That's what I can help do with you. So let me ask you this question. And there's a couple of ways you can ask. This is where you want to find out where you stand. There's several that you can use. There's negative types and positive types. How do I compare it to the ideal or the top candidate, not to others, is a positive question. Any reason I would not is a negative question. Do you see me fitting into this role? That's pretty good question to ask the team interview. You know, some of these questions, you have to think about who you're talking to. You don't necessarily ask the same questions to a recruiter that you would ask to HR that you would ask to the team, that you would ask to operations, marketing, sales, or the hiring manager or the hiring manager. They may be some different ways you would ask this question depending on who you're talking to. Always would like us to know the whole process for interviewing and then update that. So when you first start the process, the question is something, what do you have to do here to get on board, right? What's your hiring process? What's the style of their interviews? Who will I be talking to? Well, you may not know the answers to all of that immediately up front, but at least you can find the process. Who is the hiring manager? Is there a projected decision date? When is the anticipated start date? You might even ask, is there a budget for this position? All right. You might ask those kind of questions to find out. You deserve to know this stuff. So let's find out what that process is, and then update it as we go. So maybe the team interview gets scheduled, and so that's when you find out who is going to be on my team interview. And if the person says, well, I don't know, and I said, well, is there any way you could find out who those people are? I'd really be interested to know. I mean, just don't let people blow you off. Try to find that out. Be persistent. Right, Mark? All right, that's the process. Thank you, Mark. I'll send you $1. Next steps. So where do we go from here? Who do I call if I have questions? Now, who do I call if I ask questions is an important thing. People always want to touch base and want to get back in touch with them. They want to find out status. Well, the worst thing you can do, you're the interviewer, okay? You've interviewed 6 candidates. You get 6 emails on Monday and say, can you tell me about the status of the hire? Now, what do? I mean, you're just a pain, right? They don't have time to tell the status to everybody. So we don't want to do that, but yet you want to find out status at the same time. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a second on the thank you notes and stuff. But where do we go from here? So instead of saying, what's the next step? Before you ask that, I'd say, will I hear back from anyone as to the results of this interview? Okay, who will that be? And when should I expect to hear back from them? Okay, now if it's somebody present in the interview and it's them, that's great. But they say, it's the recruiter. You'll hear from the recruiter. Okay, and which recruiter is it? Maybe I don't know them. Or maybe it's anybody in recruiting. Maybe I'm working with a recruiter and I don't know who that is. And when should I expect them to get back with me? All right. You want to kind of put a time frame in there and understand what their time frame process is for making this decision, whether you're going to make the next step or not. This isn't, I look forward to hearing from you soon. This is, I'll know when I'm going to hear from you. I'm finding that out. There's nothing going to hurt you in asking these questions and finding that out. Their agenda, but you're in control of your job search. So, when you have questions, you say, who do I call? Now, I said call. Now, we rarely call people anymore unless you want to leave a voicemail. But ask for calling. And then may tell you, well, you can send me an email with any questions you have. All right. But you got to find out who that person is so that you can keep in touch with them by in a note to them asking that question. All right. And so that'll help you stay top of mind. And then bidding farewell. Same energy that you walked into the interview with, if it was positive and wonderful and excited. All right. You want to do something, thank you for your time. You don't have to say, I'm looking forward to hearing from you soon. You already know that, but you can leave with a real positive thing. Says, I can't wait to get started. This is really exciting to me. All right. So that's closing. After the interview, let's talk a little bit about follow-up. Thank you notes within 24 hours. If you're local, that means you can drop them off. But today, we don't know how to get thank you notes to people who are remote. It's a little difficult. Make sure you get their information so you can send them an email. All right. So email's acceptable too, but within 24 hours. If you are going to do this by snail mail, you're going to put it in the mailbox. That's fine if you need to mail it because it might be remote somewhere. And they tell you how to reach them and how to reach them by mail. So get that out. So take your thank you notes with you. When you're doing the interview, you've got their names, you've got their information. You're also making notes that Mark said this and Jeff said this, And Patty said that, you know, because I'm going to go back and talk about and give them a compliment in the follow-up. Now, write everything down, alert your references if you've got references, and they say they're going to contact them. You might, but if you feel they're going to contact them, I would immediately alert references and say you may get a call. I hope you've done due diligence on your references, i.e., okay, Patty, if you were to be a reference to me, just what would you tell them about me? And then when I listened to Patty's answer, I decided whether she's going to be a reference or not, because I may not like what she's saying. But I need to help the references say, specifically, here's some things that you might be able to mention in our history and past that would, you know, that's appropriate for that. So always make it easy for people to help you. But do that. What did you do right? What did you do wrong? What did you feel bad about what it is? So how can I improve that for the next time? And so I do some more research. We talked about these things I didn't have that much information about. So let me go find out some more information for the next interview. The whole kind of thing. You can show that you have done your homework. Continue your research. Don't stop finding other people, having informational interviews. Find out more information about the company, the industry, who their competitors are. Continue to get more knowledge so that you can demonstrate that knowledge in the interview, and that's a strong differentiator from other candidates. Your connection request on LinkedIn. I kind of got a pet peeve about LinkedIn, and that's the generic connection request from someone I do not know. All right. And I know Jeff's on my side with this. He, you know, why should I connect with you? I don't even know who you are. But if you put a little note in there and say, you know, Mark McDonald, I had a practice interview on the pit crew, and he was telling me that you also offer a service. And so I'd like to follow up and connect with you. All right. And so I connect, and then you come back and say, okay, here, I want to follow up. You know that most connections are generic, not notes, not different. And what I want to do is when I connect with you is give you some information and say why I want to connect with you. And I'm also interested in helping them. So then when they connect, I send a thank you note. All right, send a thank you for connecting with me. Now, if you really want to connect with people, you say, can we schedule a little time? I'd like to call and talk with you and learn some more about something, all right? So you're trying to get that informational interview, perhaps, whatever it can be. So follow up. I mean, there's connections and then there are contacts. And I will tell you that I bet you most of the people called connections in LinkedIn are contacts. You don't know anything about them. You know very little. We're trying to get to that 500 plus, the magic number that's going to get us a job, which is the slow way to get one. So LinkedIn, follow up, follow the company, keep going, staying in touch, ask those additional questions. You might find something they may be interested in to send them, something that you talked about in the interview. There's an interesting article or something like that. But show your continued interest. If they've made a recent accomplishment, find out what's going on, what's happening with them, and then thanking people for their replies. One of the things that's very interesting to me is that several times people send me an email and say, hey, you know anybody in these companies? So I go out and I spend some time searching, and I say, well, I've got some seconds and I got some first, and here's who I know, and here's how I know them, and whatever it might be. And then I get an email back that says, thank you. And then I never hear another thing. Not another word comes across. And I say, gee, I wonder if they contacted. I wonder if it helped. I wonder if it did anything. Follow up on those kinds of things. Let people know. If they've helped you in your job search process, you want to go back to them and give them feedback and saying, what was the value? What was the information you gave me? How that helped you in that job search? All right. And continue networking. So in your follow-up communications, here's a couple of things that I'd like you to consider including. One is reinforce your enthusiasm for the position and the company. So we want to restate that again. This job is really exciting to me. I love doing this type of work, and I'm really ready to help you increase your revenue, turn around your customers, whatever, value that you can bring, all right? And so at least one way that you can do something to help them and say, here's the next action step and date, right? So you followed up with them, you told them about this, you say, you had indicated that if I didn't hear from you by this date, that I could contact you. And so I'm contacting you through this. It could be in an email. And if I don't hear back from you by whatever date you want to set in the future, set that next step and that date too. All right. Always have something close coming up. So, and if I don't hear from that, I'll contact you again. And then make sure you have your contact information. I get some emails that are very interested, and I get something, and if they didn't have an email address and email, I wouldn't know how to reach them. But if I had their phone number, if I had their LinkedIn at the bottom, and a lot of you do that, and that's really good. It's a lot easier for me to reach you. So anybody that can help you, your idea is, what can I do to make it easy for them to do? I'm not going to do a lot of work. All right. So here's an example of a thank you note. I'm not going to read it to you, but what are the essential parts of this thank you note? A handwritten note is better. Now, I saw one person who says, well, I can't send it on email. So he hand wrote a note on thank you note card, took a picture of it and included it in the email. Okay. So that's different. That's unique. All right. It shows you went out of the way to personally write something, which is different than just the email itself. Now, there's nothing wrong with the email. The content of the email is going to make a real difference. So does it contain a compliment? How many interviewers get compliments? Rare, right? You say, I really like your discussion about, or our dialogue. Now I got to stop saying conversation. Mark, you got my mind going here. So really liked our dialogue about this particular topic and some of the ideas that you had. All right. Deliver it quickly and then send it to everybody, even the people that you don't interview. Suppose an admin sets up the interview for you and you're working with them, or you're working up with a recruiter who sets up the interview. You send that information. In fact, you can send a thank you note for setting it up before the event ever occurs. Right away. They helped you right away. You send us, thank you, appreciate your help. And so admins all vote whether you get hired or not. So it's not a technique, it's something that you're really interested in doing. And so thanking people, standing out with them, being honest and forthright is a very, very strong differentiator. So this pushing practice. So we're done. We can take some more questions. I haven't been watching the chat window, but I strongly suggest that you practice. Now, I know that a lot of people aren't prepared for practicing. All right, I'm not ready yet. Practice will help you get ready. Come on down. We're not going to shoot you. We're here to help. Everybody's on your side. So you might want to step out of your comfort zone a little bit, and I can guarantee you, Jared did it six times or so in the pit crew, maybe even more. He did it 3 or 4 times with me in the interview success workshop. And when he got hired at Lockheed, he said their interview was simple. It was easy. And you kind of go, duh, I wonder why that was, right? He practiced a lot. He got very, very confident. That's the key. So this is something a little different for us. We're not used to selling ourselves. We're not used to communicating in this fashion. We've got all this technical stuff we've got to do through Zoom and understand video interviewing and how to make good first impressions over that. So there's a lot of work to be done. This is your time. You can practice it. You're practicing it now. If I go look at your video right now, does it look like someone that I would like to see, or do you hide behind your name? That's what I say. If you just got your name up there and you're hiding, to me, you don't want to hide. Now's your time to come out. Put on your professional dress, get your background ready, get engaged, do that sort of thing, stand out. And when you do it for practice, when it doesn't really count, you get to feel a lot better when you do it for real. All right, questions?
I really didn't see, nobody really had any questions. I think you did a great job sort of covering all this.
See, I saw one question, what kind of questions can you ask to discover the company's culture? And so several people responded to that. I also posted up the 200 questions job candidates may ask you, which is a document that Walt found. It's actually for recruiters and hiring managers to get them prepared for questions that candidates might ask them. But I take that a little further. These are high performance candidates. And so there's some good questions in there you can ask about company culture. And so take a look at that. There's also questions in there about how to ask for the job. So we usually get a lot of questions about that.
And I like Walt's example where he talks about, you know, you can't handwrite a thank you note. So handwrite that thank you note, take a picture of it, scan it, and email it to them, because it will make a difference. I mean, you may not be able to mail it to them. Even if you can mail it and you do have an address, just go ahead and take a photo of it right away and do that.
One of the things I was going to bring up, I said in the comments that in a lot of places, the interview starts prior to the interview. It starts when you pull into the parking lot. They're watching how you maybe deal with the security guard, especially the front desk receptionist. I know a lot of companies who will go back afterwards and ask the receptionist, how did they come in? Were they bullying? Did they follow your procedures? How did they sit in the reception area? Did they look professional? Were they slouching? I think Walt brought up a lot of times the administrative assistant who set up the interview and has been speaking to you. They will ask them, you know, how you treated them. So realize the interview, the opening of the interview doesn't always start in the interview room.
And also, they may walk you out to your car. So if they walk you out to your car, make sure your car is sort of neat. Doesn't have to be washed, but just make sure you don't have a bunch of junk in the back seat, because you've then told the person that, you know, you're sort of disorganized or whatever. I had somebody once walk me out to my car afterwards. Maybe that was just something they did just to peek and see.
Christopher, you're right on target. All right. I mean, basically, you're always in job search mode. You're always being evaluated. You're always on stage. It never stops. Okay. You're on stage right now. Okay. People that engage, for example, kind of stand out a little bit. All right. So if you're out there and you can figure out a question to ask, that would be good, because you get engaged, and that's good. That helps you get engaged during the regular interview as well. I'll have to tell you a little story. I was several years ago, back in 2000, when I was, after retiring forcibly after 25 years, I had a panel interview, and there was an HR person from a hotel chain. And she said, oh, and another thing that I do is when they leave, I go and I look at that car and see if it's clean. So Jeff, you kind of brought that up. Now, I wanted to stand up and say, tomorrow, let's go through the parking lot and take some names, because some of those cars aren't going to be clean, and we got to put them on the blacklist, and we need to get rid of those people. So, you know, interviewers, you know, if you want to know how people make decisions to hire you, the answer is it's all over the map. You never really know what that is, but the fundamentals of likability are still there. The I am, I do, and I help, and those kind of things. So, yeah.
Laura asked, is it okay to send video thank yous?
Why not? Why not? Right? I think, you know, I think that's an excellent way of differentiating yourself. If you don't know about the Who You Know workshop, you might want to take a look at that, because they tell you and show you how to produce or make some of those videos yourself and some of the tools to do that. But I think it's a great idea to send a video interview. Oh, thank you.
I mean, anybody can get a free copy of Zoom. You can record yourself right on Zoom. In fact, your computer has a program probably called Camera, where you can sit there, hit the record button, and go back and watch it. Now, the key is, I would say, keep it short. You probably don't want it to be more than 60 seconds, because I know Walt and Mark, we've watched a lot of video interviews and we go, you know, we're ready to tune out after 25, 30 seconds. So, you know, I would just keep it really short.
Do y'all touch on if the interview team asks you out for like breakfast or lunch, that, you know, how you should behave there, what you should order, not order?
I haven't put anything specific together about that, but you know not to eat spaghetti, you know not to eat barbecue, you know, there's just certain things that you know. I know that one of the interviews that I had when I was hiring somebody or invited him to lunch, he had ordered a salad and he did not eat while we were asking him questions. He just didn't eat. He just paid attention to the interview part. And then when I got to this part, I said, "Do you have any questions for us?" I said, "Why don't you go ahead and eat, and we'll answer your questions now," because I was giving them several minutes, a lot of time to ask us questions, but he chose that. So, yeah, choose something that's not going to get you into trouble.
I had one seminar say that if they take you to lunch, plan on not eating. You better have a protein bar in your pocket because you're not going to get to eat.
Yep, you got to be careful. That's why you never see anybody on TV eating food, because they just know it doesn't it doesn't film well. It doesn't look good.
Yeah,
So
it's
you
not a good
got to
look.
be very careful. What'd you say, Mark?
I said it's not a good look.
Yeah, not a good look. All right, well, gentlemen, thank you very, very much. Great information. Please join Career DFW, Career USA every week. Every Tuesday, we do a LinkedIn presentation. Wednesday, interviewing, as you're right here. Tomorrow, we're going to do an effective resume class in the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. We're going to be on Zoom. We're on Facebook Live. Join us every week. Let's see here. Tomorrow, our effective resume Thursday class. Our theme is going to be the similarities and differences between a resume and a LinkedIn profile. So please join us. Also, we'll be giving away 2 1-month licenses to be able to use jobscan.co. It'll be an unlimited use. You can use it as much as you like. So please join us tomorrow and have an opportunity to win. This Friday at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, our speaker is going to talk about background checks. He runs a background check company in Fort Worth. He's spoken to our group many times. He speaks all over the state about employment relations and employment law, and it's fascinating. It'll be a really good presentation. So if you're ever curious about background checks, join us Friday morning at 9:30. Next Tuesday, our LinkedIn presenter will be Terry Sullivan. He's going to talk about how to tell your key contacts who you are, what you do, and how you help. Please note this event will not be recorded. You will not be able to see it. Once the event's over, Terry doesn't want any of his seminars, workshops to be recorded. Next Wednesday, we'll be doing lesson 7, discussing compensation and the circumstances around leaving your previous job. Lessons 1 through 6 are all on the Career USA YouTube channel. This session has been recorded. It will be up on the Career DFW Facebook page and on the Career USA YouTube channel. It'll take a couple hours before YouTube gets it up and loaded. They seem to be very slow this morning. Follow us on Facebook. If you do, every time we go live, you'll get an alert on your phone. We had 11 people on Facebook this morning, or for this workshop, and on the Career USA YouTube channel, if you subscribe to it, every time we post a new video, you can go back and you'll be able to watch it. And you'll be able to watch today's presentation as many times as you want, and stop it and pause it and go back and watch things. Here's what it looks like on the Career USA YouTube channel. Make sure you're on playlist is the easiest way to use it. And then don't click on the video, but click underneath where you see that green arrow where it says view full playlist. And when you do that, up will come a list of all the sessions we have, and you'll be able to go back, it'll have the date on it, and also have what session it is and the title of the session, so you can find what's going on. And you can tell this is from the very beginning. It should sort the other way now with the newest video on top. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops, I know we had several people outside the DFW area joining us today. If you're not, and you'd like to get an email every time the morning with the Zoom link and everything, please, you can subscribe to Career Plus Subscribe at groups.io. You will only get 6 emails a week maximum. Sunday, we put out the tip of the week. Monday, we put out the programming for the week. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you'll get emails with the Zoom links for that day's workshop. If you'd like to join the Career DFW or Career USA LinkedIn groups, you're welcome to do both. The Career DFW LinkedIn Yahoo groups or LinkedIn group has over 12,900 members. The Career USA group, you don't have to live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to join the group. Just 2 different groups that are out there for you. So please remember, Career DFW, we're just a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Mark is a volunteer, Walt's a volunteer, I'm a volunteer. None of us get paid to do what we do. I've never gotten paid in the last 13 years to do this. I just do this. It's what I do to give back to the community. We survive on donations. So we have no full or part-time employees. The donations help pay for the Zoom link, for the business cards when we were handing them out, pays for the federal state filings, the web host names, the web hosting and stuff. So when you do land your next opportunity, we hope that you consider making a donation so we can continue to do what we're doing. So thank you very much for joining us today. There's that email address again if you'd like to subscribe and get emails from Career DFW or Career USA about our upcoming program. Have a great afternoon, Mark and Walt. Thank you again for your time.
All right, if you can hang on a second.